Hello.
Hi, Dan.
How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah,
It's
surviving.
good to see you, Mark. I haven't seen
Yeah,
you for a while.
yeah, it's been ages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Um, so how's lockdown for you? You live in your studio, right? So how have you been the last sort of 7 weeks?
yeah, it's been okay. I mean, I do miss seeing people, but yeah, I mean, without the pandemic part, I definitely had been wishing for more time in the studio. It's like, careful what you wish for. But yeah, it's been good, and I think there are these like complications with the lockdown of like, you know, getting materials and like Jackson's was still delivering, and and Fitzpatrick's were kind of off and on, you know. There was just this all of a sudden. It's like, oh, I have this kind of unlimited time in the studio, but there might not be unlimited paint. It was a weird. It's like, okay, and and then little things, because I'm surrounded by lots of commercial premises. My post stopped for like 2.5 weeks, and so there were kind of yeah. It was like making covert arrangements with art shops to go pick things up on this curbside, and um, yeah. So I guess I've been doing a little bit of oil painting, but a lot of gouaches, because that seemed like I've managed to actually get like a huge amount of
Oh, nice. Yeah.
of gouache, and uh, yeah, I've been doing that, and that's quite good, and it doesn't use a lot of materials, and I can sort of work through a lot of different ideas. And
Yeah. I guess it happened quite quickly, right? It was only really 2 or 3 days, and then we were locked down, so there wouldn't have been a lot. I'd not really thought about, yeah, it
well,
from your perspective. Like, okay, you suddenly got a month in the studio ahead. You need to plan for that, don't you? You need the equipment and materials.
I also had the problem of uh, working well, uh, sort of my day job, working for Toby. um, Toby had symptoms, so like the week before the lockdown, I went into self isolation. So it's actually, however long it's been for everyone else, it's been like a week and a half longer for me, and that was like, oh, actually, I can't. Even though there was a weird window of things were still open, but it was like, oh, I really need to stay at home, because I mean, I'm fine, and Toby's fine
Yeah.
now, and like, but it was just like, oh, actually, I need to
So you've had
isolate.
an extra week. You're
Yeah.
a week ahead of everyone. Oh, crikey. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there was a bit of uh, yeah, actually scrambling for materials once I came out of those kind of 14 days, and then uh, and the lockdown was fully on. And so yeah, I think it's different, because I think like other things, like, well, I have also done the Skelf podcast during this time. I've done one episode during this time, and that,
Yeah.
other than sort of having to do the interview over Zoom rather than like fixing an appointment in real life, that was pretty much the same. And it's sort of nice that I mean, Skelf can kind of, because it was always online, and I think we did most things by email anyway. It's sort of
Yeah.
just, it's like a regular month at Skelf. It's
Yeah.
like this.
That's
Everything
nice.
is proceeded normally. But yeah, I guess like things like working digitally, you kind of, I don't know, you just like order another hard drive online or something. That's about the only materials you need. Or
Yeah.
download new software or something. But
Yeah. I mean, in a
yeah,
way, it's like there couldn't have been a better time in history for a lockdown, could there? Even if it had been sort of 5 years ago or something, you don't think websites would have been able to cope with the schemes like the furlough and all these like massive sort of infrastructure projects that have had to be launched and sort of worked.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, I can't imagine it like, yeah, and especially like 15 years ago, it really would have been a lot of reading or something.
Yeah.
It would have been really difficult to keep everything running even at this level.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it got us a chance to do this and have a look in your studio. So thank you very much for letting us in. It's very kind of you.
Yeah, so I'm sort of at the, I don't know how I can I'm like at my kind of gouache table, which is
like God, don't spill anything on your computer.
Oh no, it's fine. Everything is like kind of everything has lids on. Yeah, and yeah, it's sort of my like day to day. It's actually a good preparation for this was doing residencies. Because you have to kind of go there with a suitcase, or because I did a couple of residencies in Canada, in Toronto, it was like, well, all my materials have to go in a suitcase and they have to go on an airplane. So it's like, that means no oil painting. That means,
really
and it's like, and also where I did the residency was on an island. So actually, when I was there, I'd sort of have to think about food for the week, because there were no shops on the island, so you'd go to the mainland, get food, and it's like, oh, okay, this is like, that's about the best, the way I worked in that period is like a good way to be working now, because you're kind of really, it's that weird thing, I guess in London you never plan ahead. It's just like, I need milk. 24 hours a day I can go and get that in 5 minutes, or I need paint, I'll get that tomorrow, even if tomorrow is Sunday, or there's a way of working where you kind of, it's just up to the last minute, and you're always like, oh, there's always a way to do it, there's always a way to get everything kind of made or processed, or there's always someone open or something about it. And then and I think so the residency, it was more of a shock then to sort of go, oh my, yeah, I need to think of food for the week and materials for the week or 2 weeks. And
so have you been thinking about lockdown like a residency? Have you made a bit of a plan of stuff to do? Did you have a sort of starting point? Or, I mean, I know we don't know how long this is going to go on for. So
yeah.
It's a bit tricky.
Well, I mean, I did start, like, because what I'd done on the residency, I'd made it, the first time I did it, I made a video as well, but I was making lots of sort of watercolors and gouaches, and that was, with the thought that it's fairly non-toxic, and then it dries quickly, so I can work right up to the, like, maybe 2 hours before I have to pack and then still put it away, which you can't do with oil paint. And
do a day and then let it dry for a month, and then that's your residency.
Yeah. Well, especially the first one I did was very short. It was like a week, so there was just like no. I just there were lots of things that there was paint, and then there was this really nice handmade paper from Montreal that I picked up while I was traveling around there, and. So it was kind of like, oh, actually, I do have I have a stack of these materials here. I don't really have like, like I was saying with being able to get everything at the last minute. With oil painting, I'd sort of, it's like, oh, I need a tube of white. I'll go out this afternoon and get that. Whereas I guess because of doing the residency, I had a little bit of a stockpile of stuff, and it was like, oh, I can start working, and I think I maybe a few months ago, I'd had a period where I'd had a few weeks of working on things as well. And it was nice to kind of, I mean, I think the gouache sort of demands different things, like things have to be a bit simpler than an oil painting, and there's maybe less room for kind of certain transparency or I don't know. You can do different things with color, and then that kind of, and what's satisfying as a painting is maybe different. Like maybe you can have something very simple in gouache, and so so it was kind of quite nice to. It's been quite nice to kind of get back into that, and then just have a real intensive, making. I mean, I made lots of things that didn't work, but quite a few things that did.
You just paused for a minute, but I was saying that I wonder if doing with gouache is a little bit like hairdressing, where you've got to set yourself up and you've got one shot and you've got to get it right because there's nothing to turn back and do. You can't go back and do it again, whereas with oil painting, it's a bit more forgiving.
Yeah. I have that. I've sort of learned to blot a little bit. Like I've got drops on it, and if you can kind of get them while they're wet and take a little water to but generally it's pretty one shot, and once
we dive in and have a look at some.
Oh yeah.
Have you got some stuff on your? Do you know to do the share screen?
Yeah, let me see. So there's share screen. Is this? Is this? Have you got the screen now?
Yeah, that's it. Brilliant.
Am I the right way round?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can show you, actually, I'll show you, some of the, I was actually making bigger things on the residency. So there were a few of these. And, it was kind of, I mean, they were quite, I guess they were quite constructed. I actually went around and it's quite a weird, actually, the residency is actually in a park I used to go to as a kid. You there, Dan?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was somewhere I'd been when I was under 10 years old, and then I was back doing a residency. So I don't know. I was kind of going around. I sort of fixated on birch trees as something. I don't know. I guess it was something graphic, and I don't know. I think there are quite a few Klimt paintings of birch trees, and there are and then there were all probably. There was lots of
birch
Japanese
trees are the trees you get in London, right? Are they around?
Yeah, I mean there are a bunch. There are a bunch. They're the sort of black and white ones. There are a bunch outside the Tate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it was just I think, this is something kind of quite graphic and familiar, so I can play around with it quite a bit. And it was also only having 2 weeks in the studio there, and just sort of making a couple of things every day, and what could I generate as a way of kind of playing with color and composition and stuff. And there were a few other things where it was just
oh wow, beautiful.
Taking an image, an outline of a hill, and but and also seeing what the paint would do. I guess that was sort of, this one was painting yellow stripes first, and then trying to outline the hill, but the yellow stripes kind of come through. And
so the yellow is the paint, and what colour is the? Is there any raw paper on there? No.
Can you see the cursor, or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so the sort of peachy color is the paper.
Okay, yeah.
And then the first layer is these stripes, the yellow stripes, and then I kind of went over and sort of tried to define. I think I had an image of. I think it was an image I had already, but from Toronto, of a a fairly ordinary hill, but and I guess a lot of the work and a lot of the painting has always been these kind of I don't know, whatever an everyday space is, but a lot of images of houses and then these were sort of, I guess, park spaces or kind of small landscapes that, you know, aren't necessarily anywhere wild or, and then, so.
But they're always rendered in these sort of very lurid colours, aren't they? Or often rendered in these very lurid colours that give somewhere maybe that's quite everyday or might seem quite normal, a very sort of dark, underlying sort of mood to it. Or...
and then, I found myself like even amongst so this is now from the last few weeks, and this was sort of revisiting things that, you know, images I'd used in oil paintings and sort of trying to, you know, see what worked within the gouache painting.
So where's this building from?
That's actually the Isle of Man, where near where my mum lives, and it was just it was just sort of a row of houses that sort of that worked quite well, and I've sort of taken it into different. I mean, I think they were grey to start out with, and like a dark roof.
See the sort of roof just about there, can't you?
Yeah, and some of the red, they're very nice, but they're very difficult to photograph sometimes. Like things that are nicely subtle in real life kind of disappear, and then that's I guess from an image of Canada, kind of close to sort of Eastern Ontario, where I went to university.
Wow, and what's that, like a bungalow?
I think I sort of had the photo for ages, and I think I just took it while someone else was driving out of the window of a car. But I think it was it was a building that I think was a shop or like a petrol station, and then it was a house. So it's ended up with this kind of slightly weird architecture.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Even more strangely rendered with your sort of negative wall there or something. Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know. I think I painted an orange wall and it was too much, so I sort of like stippled on it with the pink color in it.
Yeah.
I mean, the orange wall was nice, but it was like it overwhelmed the rest of it. So it was like, but there was kind of a nice tension with bringing the pink on top of it. And and I guess it's just figuring out different things. Like I'm really just sort of feeling my way with gouache, and it was sort of like I didn't really want to do something that was within the kind of like watercolor tradition, whereas like gouache is a very similar material, but it feels like it has like these different associations with it. Like I guess all the Matisse cutouts are pieces of paper painted with gouache, and then I guess gouache gets used a lot in design because it's just very solid color and matte and easy to kind of rephotograph. And
so it's a bit more, I don't know, watercolor comes with such a sort of specific idea of loaded sort of connotations, doesn't it? Whereas gouache is a bit more free, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's got these other associations, like maybe more commercial associations or, or different, more like 20th century art.
More 20th century, that's the word.
I mean, I think I was also thinking that, I remember doing, we had to do in university, did a course on like Canadian art history, and there's actually like a kind of slightly horrible like colonial association that like they'd send the British Army out into Canada and they'd do like topographical watercolors. So like watercolor is also, I think there's this sort of weird, and it was part of claiming the territory, that you'd send your army out and they'd do watercolors of it, and then you'd, like, back in London, everyone would know what the territory looked like, and this was yours now, and like the sort of
weird.
Yeah, and maybe actually also, like, having been here and going back to Canada, it's like, oh, I don't want to engage in something similar to that. I'm sure if I did watercolor, so then other things like the kind of Sunday painter associations don't seem so bad compared to that. But,
yeah. Oh wow! Look at that.
Yeah. So I think it was just, it was also because as much as you water it down, gouache kind of stays quite solid. So it was.
So it's very opaque.
Yeah, exactly. That's a better word. So it's then, how do you break up the space in simple ways? Like, how do you let the surface come through when it's either kind of on or off the paint? It's like, it's a bit, maybe it's like, I don't know, sometimes a bit like silkscreen, which doesn't have a lot of kind of, you can kind of break it down into dots, or you can break it down into stripes or things, but it's like, it's either,
because I guess oil paint, you can you can grade it, can't you? Blend it, whereas you can't do that with the gouache.
You can definitely do washes, and I think a lot of things I've done have sort of worked between bringing the background through by working on parts of it quite transparently. And I don't have a lot up on the desktop, but that's a recent oil painting. And then so it's kind of, again, like similar to the gouaches, it's kind of a peachy underpainting. And then in the area where it's the ground in the tree, it's that's quite like a muddy color, but quite transparent. And then the sort of sky color, or this lighter color, peachy color, they're put on more opaquely, and then or in a more opaque manner. And so that sort of lets, there's just like a different, even though it's very similar colors, it's like different ways of building things up. And
it goes very well with my shoes, this painting. I'm going to take a photo and I'll send it to you. Can we talk about the atmosphere that you're going for in your paintings?
Yeah, I mean, it's weirdly, it feels, I guess there's sort of weird things at the moment where, actually, maybe all the works were kind of about a kind of strange isolation, and this sort of strange psychological space or something that. Whereas that's very present for everybody at the moment. Maybe that was something I was sort of interested in exploring all the time. And I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes I'm not sure that.
I think I read something before we started chatting about familiar but strange. They're often like the settings that you're interested in are quite sort of everyday, although some look strange to us being Canadian. They might be like, familiar, but there's always this sort of undertone, which sort of throws you off and sort of really makes you readdress what you're looking at, which is I've always found really interesting in your work. I'm just wondering if that's always been there, and if you can say a bit about that.
Well, I think there was a time, maybe like kind of 15 years ago, I was painting like fires and things that were like, where it was very obvious like what the event was in the painting, and then
I've got the palm tree on fire.
Yes,
That's kind of
it's
placed in my bedroom. Yeah.
And the DKUK collection. But I think lots of the there's an oil sketch. But Yeah, lots of the recent ones, it's been, or I mean the last 10 years or so, it's been these sort of paintings that like where you don't know what is happening. You know, there's nothing in the image that communicates exactly, you know, what event is going on, and they're often like a little bit isolated, so you're not exactly sure where you are. Like sometimes it's like, oh, that looks like a North American house, or that looks like a British house, or but yeah, I think there's a kind of dislocation, and I guess there was always that idea that, you know, I could make a very everyday painting of, well, I guess maybe like this one of the sort of Macrame Owls, and it's very, nothing's happening, and it's very, I mean, maybe it's kind of tied to a certain time period, but
what are they of? Sorry,
Macrame Owls.
Macrame. What's macrame?
Oh, that's sort of it had a heyday in the 1970s. It's a sort of weaving.
Like the plant pot.
Yeah.
Sort of holders. Yeah. Okay.
And it was actually it was a very. I think I started with it. There was a very specific thing that my parents had one, but they had a macrame owl in the kitchen, but it was. I don't think they liked it. It was something like some cousin had given us, so it sort of had to stay up in the house. But it was in a location that, like, if the door was open, it was sort of hidden, and and then I realized later that I had no, like, obviously it got, you know, my mum got rid of it at some point, and I didn't even have an image of it. You know, like no one had taken a picture of that corner of the kitchen, and so. But so I think it's sometimes little things like that. Like I mean, I'm sort of searching for these like ordinary images, but often there's kind of a approximation of something I remember, but have no no actual image of. But I think what I was saying first was like. The idea that you can go in with these quite like gray colors and paint everything gray, but if you've got if the background is like sort of peach or yellow or something, there's this idea of something kind of moving like literally below the surface, and you can kind of see that, and
you've got a real master of the material as well. How long have you been painting for?
Like ages. Like I actually, I think so, I mean, everybody I guess paints as a kid, but I also, I actually went to this painting class when I was like, I don't know, from about the time I was like 10 to about 15 or something, and It was me and like all these retired women. It was like some of my grandmother's friends. But I think my grandmother took the class, but on a different day. And so, and we'd sort of sit there and we'd like, I mean, it was often like process-wise, it was quite close to what I do now. I'd be taking, kind of taking a photograph and then trying to approximate it in an oil painting. But that was much more. Like a conventional rendering, not even like photorealistic, but like more, like Sunday painter kind of trying to make something nice, of an image of some mountains or a tree stump or.
And did they teach you this sort of how to do that? Because I suppose that's something that doesn't really get taught in this country now, isn't it? At art schools, at least. Yeah,
there's There was a little bit, but they were very stingy. Like I remember the teacher telling me at one point that, she was making this sky blue color, but she'd started with the blue instead of the white. And, by the end of it, she had a kind of baby food jar full of like the sky color. And that was absurd to her. Like that was so much paint. That was like such a waste. Like that was way too much because they were making like quite small things, and and everything you were kind of like thinning down with like white spirit and oil and stuff, and so it was like, it was like very like using the materials very minimally. So it was then a big shift like to go to art school and like be splashing paint around.
Right. Yeah. And then a few years ago, we're kind of coming towards the end of the time now, but I just wanted to talk about there was that accelerator program that you did, and then a couple of the residencies, and it seems like your practice has branched out in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, maybe with some. So there was a video that's on your website, and the podcast recordings. So I wonder if we could talk a little bit about that process. That might be interesting to people.
I mean, it was quite helpful. I guess the accelerator. You mean the sort of new creative markets thing at Space?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is it still going that?
Sorry. Now it's sort of morphed. It's LCN, London Creative Network. So it's more now. It's very targeted that you would go in with like a new project or a new way of working, and that you hadn't a way you hadn't worked before, and they would sort of hook you, like pair you up with technical advisors to sort of help you do that. I don't know. I think when I went through, it was very much. It was like it's very hard to like advise an artist like of what to do and how to. I mean, I think there's certain things like
stubborn bastards that just do what they want by nature, right?
Yeah, but it's also the second you start looking at what worked what worked for someone 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, then that's been done. And I think if you try and advise people to kind of do that again, you're people are like over familiar with that way of working. And I think if you're, like no one would have told you to open a salon with art, you would, but it's just like, so I think it was helpful to a point. I mean, there were things like, how to sort out your finances and do your taxes as an artist. So there were things like that were like extremely helpful, and it was really nice to meet a lot of people on that. But I think it, in a weird way, then made me think about other things I liked doing that weren't necessarily going to be, they weren't on the prescribed path of being a painter. And I think I don't know. And I think in Toronto, because Toronto it's not like a big art market. It's a big city, but I think culture is smaller, and so there was a lot of kind of intermingling of kind of musicians and writers and artists, and also the precedent of some. I mean, I think growing up, I just thought like someone like General Idea that's what or now like A.A. Bronson, the surviving member, like that's what an artist was. That an art collective would run a bookshop, or they'd make record covers for bands, or they'd there was the gallery practice, but then there would all be all these other things they did. They were part of the sort of postal art movement in the 70s, and I don't know. So I think it was thinking about things I'd done when I was there, that it was just like kind of natural that every artist made a zine, and so I think it. There are things I've sort of tried out that haven't. I mean, it's really difficult to make a zine in the way I made one sort of 20 years ago, because there were like photocopy shops to kind of go and play around with, or a zine has become either, I don't know, I think the two functions of it have almost split. Like it's either kind of more of an artist book now, and people are doing like quite beautiful things, but like in terms of the sort of scrappy little thing or just a way of getting out ideas of information, maybe that's moved online in a way.
It's Instagram, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, for just sort of quickly getting visuals and ideas out there and stuff. We're going to have to leave it there, Mark.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I feel like we're just getting going, but
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was lovely to see you and see your work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was really nice to see you. It's like. Oh, I like your London background. I just noticed it.
I've had to move downstairs. I'm at my brother's. This is his wall. Look. Little home from home.
Yeah. I've been there. I was there the other day. Like I was kind of like trying to go on the like as big a walk as I can for my like one daily walk. So that's like, I don't know. And it's nice to like go to the river.
Yeah, get a bit of space. But everyone should follow Mark on Instagram because they're an absolute pleasure. And look on your website. I had a very pleasant hour on your website this morning.
Oh,
it's
thank
looking
you.
really good. Yeah, with all the radio shows and the podcasts you record in. I think, especially important now. We're all sort of got a bit more time on our hands.
Yeah, no, it's been. I mean, and I think. I mean, one thing I didn't say was I think the residency was when I started just really documenting painting by painting, or kind of thinking about, oh, I'm in this remote place. I need to find a way to share things, and so Instagram sort of. I think that sort of focused what I was doing on there, and carried on with that. But, which is
and we'll put
works
some
well
links.
now.
We'll put some links in with the residencies you did in that London Creative Network as well, because I'm sure people will find that useful as well.
Yeah, I'll have to see. I mean, London Creative Network is EU funded, so who knows what happens. But I think for the next few months, I think it's ongoing.
Yeah. All right, Mark.
All right.
I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Take
See
care.
you. Bye.
Bye.